Welcome
Okay.
back to the Lion's Den. I have Miss Jane Elliott with me, and I want to continue where we left off from our part one of our series this season. Um, you had the test with the students in your classroom, and from what I understand, years later, you ran the same exact brown eye, blue eyes test with adults. Can you explain to us how that went?
Right after I did it with with my students, a group of Rotarians in a nearby community needed a speaker for their Thanksgiving business because they invite a lot of foreign students come to Osage for the weekend because they don't have any way to get home to their countries over the weekend. So they were going to have these foreign students come in and they wanted me to speak to them. But first, they wanted me to do the exercise with the Rotarians. And I said, are you sure that's what you want? And the person said, yes, I am. I said, what's your job? He said, I own my own business. I said, fine. Okay, I'll put your Rotarians through the exercise. So we didn't tell them what was going to happen. And the Rotarians are the businessmen in town, the businessmen who know everything and who own everything and who run everything. And as they came into the room, I separated them according to the color of their eyes. And I made the blue-eyed people go over and stand in the corner. And I let the brown-eyed people get served, and their tables were all set up for the brown-eyed people. And when the person introduced me and said, "Here's Mrs. Elliott," I said, "Wait, we have to be sure that these people know what they're doing. You blue-eyed people need to set your tables up." The tables were still leaning against the wall with their legs folded. So these blue-eyed powerful males had to set up their own tables, set their tables, and then go and fill their plates. They were furious. They were absolutely furious. So then he comment they I said, I don't want to talk while they're eating because it's hard enough for these people to listen when they aren't eating. So I'll wait until they're done eating. Some of them got through food in a hurry because they wanted to get out of there in a hurry. And then they introduced me and I stood up and I said, well, blue-eyed people are all right, but you don't want your daughter to marry one. And at that point, about a third of the group got up and walked out. And I said, and that's what I told you. You see, they can't take it for even a minute. They can do it to other people, to women for a lifetime, to people of color for a lifetime, but not for 10 minutes at a Rotarian meeting where you're all alike. And then some of them turned around and came back and swore, and they were just furious. They never forgot it. Several years after that, 20 years after that, I was walking down the street, and one of them came toward me in a wheelchair, and I thought, I know him. And just as he realized who I was, he turned that wheelchair around and went across the street at the crossing just as fast as he could go so that he wouldn't have to meet me face to face. It has been really interesting to watch those men. Now most of them are dead, but all the time that they were alive, they never forgot what they went through for about an hour and a half at a Rotarian meeting in the basement of the whatever in Osage, Iowa. It was extremely interesting. Then I went out to Denver, Colorado, and did it every week, a couple of times a week for U.S. West,
Mhm.
U.S. West Direct, and Public Service at Colorado. I did that for 3 years. I learned a whole lot about how adult pale, stale males behave when they are treated for a few minutes the way they expect other people to tolerate being treated for a lifetime. It has just been fascinating.
You never left the education field, so I wanted to ask you, given the situation of what's going on now with Linda McMahon, who has no background in education whatsoever, at least as far as I know, and
Or
how
anything else.
she's tearing apart the
Anything else.
public school system. I'm
No.
sorry?
What now he's doing away with the Department of Education today. That's what they're working on right now today. This is a crime. This is ridiculous. The House of Representatives and the Senate should step in now and say, now you have gone too far. The Department of Education is extremely, extremely important for the people who are being educated in the United States of America. We need the Department of Education to help people in this country realize what it is they need to do as educators. And we are not teachers. I haven't been a teacher for a lot of years. We are educators. Big difference between being a teacher and being an educated becoming an educator, but the Department of Education is one of the most important departments we could have in this country, and we have to hold on to it.
I totally agree. But so it brings me to my next question. Why do you think that so many families are now shifting away from public education and going to private schools. And I know that the funding is not really there, and maybe the schools that should not be getting it and getting it to the schools that really do need it. So I guess that's a two-part question. Why is the schools that don't really need it getting the funding and not the schools that actually need it? And then why are we not, as a country, supporting our teachers even more, as well as public education?
Well, a whole lot of people now are leaving public education and not sending their children to the schools in this country because we have had, for the last 8 years, somebody saying what they're teaching in the schools is wrong. We've had governors saying we must not teach the history about slavery because it will make our little white children feel guilty. We have stopped teaching the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic and aren't even teaching the 3 R's of rights, respect, and responsibility. We have lowered educators to a state where they have no power. They can't make their own decisions. They can't decide what the kids should be taught. They are required to teach a certain curriculum that has nothing to do with truth and history. It has to do with how we can keep these kids quiet and get them out of here and get them into some place where they don't have to think very much in order to work. And now I'm really concerned about AI because I'm afraid that these people that we are educating now are going to think they don't have to think because they can construct a robot who will do their thinking for them. And education in this country has become rather like, let's make these kids into robots and we'll tell them what to think and we'll tell them what to do, and then they'll be prepared to be in a certain occupation for all their life, and they won't have to think. We aren't teaching kids to think anymore, and it bothers me a lot.
Me also. And what gets me the most is that most of these states that are underperforming as far as education are red states. So I'm wondering those very same red states, like the governor of Sarah Huckabee and Texas and Florida, where they are literally having the Daughters of Confederacy dictate how they teach kids. Why such underperforming states in education? Why are they dictating the way things are going in the Department of Education?
Because our education has failed us for the last about 50 years. Because for about 50 years we have been pretending to educate but not educating because we have people who think we don't want to teach these children too much. We want to keep them simple and we want to keep their minds not terribly active. And also, you have to remember, I didn't realize how right Marshall McLuhan was when he said, keep your kids off television, it will ruin their minds. When I began to teach 100 years ago, there was no television, obviously. So those kids were just absolutely delighted with everything we did in school. These third graders, whatever third graders I taught in whatever community, just couldn't wait to get to school because they were going to learn something new and it was going to be exciting. Then came television. I'll never forget one of them. One of my students, his last name was Chris, didn't have a television, and he was the most active student I'd ever had at the third grade level. He was into everything. It was wonderful. Then he got a television for Christmas. The day after he came back from Christmas vacation, his whole being had changed. He was no longer excited about doing exciting things in school. He wasn't particularly interested in learning anymore because he had learned that he could turn the switch and he didn't have to listen to anything or anybody. It was terrifying. And I suddenly realized, oh my God, this kid has changed. He's changed completely because of television. And now I watch my great grandchild just for a week this week. I watched him mess with his iPad every time he chance he got, instead of going outside and running around on this 2 acres of land and playing with the animals and doing that kind of thing. All he wanted to do was work on his iPad. I think that you'll have to forgive me. I didn't turn off my telephone. I think that television, Marshall McLuhan was right when he said, keep your kids away from television. And now we don't have the chance anymore because you walk in. They asked me to do a program for one of the schools in the area, but I had to wait until school, until class got out. So they said, you can walk around and just look at the classroom. So I walked upstairs and I looked at the classroom, and in every classroom, there are kids sitting on tall stools in front with a iPad in front of them or a computer in front of them, and some of them are just leaning on their fist like this, waiting for the teacher to come and correct their work. And I thought, oh my God, here are 25 kids who are waiting for the teacher to come and correct their work, and they aren't learning anything while they're sitting there waiting. They should have been actively involved in learning something instead of sitting there waiting for the teacher to come and correct their work. That I was just appalled. I'm glad I'm not in the classroom now, because I would not tolerate the kind of things that are being allowed in classrooms today.
That goes double for me. Me as a parent, when I had my kids on the weekends or for their vacations, I would get them outside because me and my brothers,
Yeah,
when we were coming up, summertime come, even in the winter, we were outside every day doing something active. We didn't get computer
absolutely.
games till later in, when I was around 15, 16. But even then, we didn't care about that stuff. We wanted to go outside, rip and run and play. So I would do
Yep,
that as an adult. I would see my kids sitting inside. I would get them out and teach them tennis. I would get them out and shoot hoop with them. I would get them out for miniature golf. And I would play with them myself just to get them active and into sports and get their mind going and pick up a book. And I'm just wondering, I don't see too many parents doing that now, and I don't get out all that much, but I don't see it.
do you see a lot of parents watching television with their children?
I see. I
Sure.
don't see them going
Yeah.
taking their kids outside and being active with them.
No, they're sitting there watching television. And you go out for dinner into a restaurant, and there's a family sitting at a round table, and every member of that family, except the parents, have a cell phone or a cell phone in their hand, doing that instead of communicating with one another. They aren't out for dinner with their parents. They're still in that boob tube. That's where their minds are, that's where their fingers are, that's where their interest is. And I know there's a lot of good stuff in computers. I realize that. However, they could get just as much good stuff out of a book or a magazine
Hmm.
or running around on outside or learning something about nature other than what is in the computer.
Hmm. I'm sure you do a lot of reading and things of that nature. So let me ask you, how do you feel about the state of race relations in the United States right now?
It's getting worse by the day. It's getting worse by the day because of our so-called president. It's going to take a whole lot of redoing in order to repair the damage that he's doing right now. He is doing tremendous damage to the state of race relations in the United States of America. And he's doing it deliberately because he's so ignorant. When you can crucify or criticize and discuss in ugly ways immigrants and then turn around and bring 59 white South Africans to this country as immigrants because they are being
Mhm.
abused by those other people in South Africa, you are absolutely you're being a fool in every possible way. How dare he say we've got to deport all these immigrants and then bring in these what he calls white South Africans. Now, as long as we call people white and black, we have this problem. It's
Mhm.
time to get rid of the words white and black. First, it's time to realize where they came from. There are no white people, there are no black people, there are no red people, and there are no yellow people. If I could just get my hands on that fool and convince him that he is not white. He is a shade of brown, just like everybody else on the face of the earth is a shade of brown. If we could just get over the idea of white and black, if we could, I, I don't know if we've discussed this before, have we?
We have, but we haven't discussed the racism that runs within his family. I mean, he's only going by what he was taught, correct?
No, he's going by what we're all taught. We're all taught the same thing in this country. We're all taught that if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, hang around. If you're black, get back. If you're red, you're dead. If you're yellow, you're mellow. We're all taught the same thing. We're all taught that there
Hmm.
are several different skin colors, and there aren't. There's only one. We're
Hmm.
all shades of brown. When we get over the idea of whiteness and blackness, the people who came up with white and black set us at polar opposites. If you're
Hmm.
good and pure, which is what white means, then you have the right, in fact, the responsibility to destroy those who are savage and evil, which is the definition, or was the definition during the Spanish Inquisition for black. We have convinced ourselves that white's all right and black's got to go. Neither of them
Hmm.
exist. But as long as we call one another white and black, that's how long we'll be at polar opposites. It's time to get over it. It's a lie. There are no white people and there are no black people. You can see that my shirt is white and my skin is not. It's a shade of brown, and your shirt is white, and your hair, I think, is black, but your skin is not. It's time to get over that idea.
Mhm. Being that there's been racism in this country since the beginning of man, I would think at this point that's a tall
No,
order, right? Do you think we can
no,
literally get over that? There's some countries that have
absolutely.
made racism illegal, but this country has not.
We could get over racism if it weren't such a lucrative endeavor. When racism starts costing money, we'll get over racism. Racism is a moneymaker. Make no mistake about that. You can force people who don't look like me to work hard and get very little money and make money on their labor. Racism has not been around forever. Racism is only about 450 years old. Now, if you're going to continue to think about white and black as they did during the Spanish Inquisition, if you want to think that way, then remember that the word race, meaning a separate group of people, came out of France in 1580. 1580. This has not been going on forever. It was
Okay.
invented as a result of a vicar in the Catholic Church deciding to make those all people into Catholics and all Christians into Catholics, and they weren't Christian. If they weren't Christian, they just killed them, and he did that. And we've been doing that ever since because of what he started. It hasn't been going on forever. It is an antisocial construct and needs to be destroyed. We all know better. We know that there are no white people and no black people. We know that it is a lie, and it's time to destroy the lie. And we could if we chose to. And let me put it this way, within probably about 25 years, so called white people will be a numerical minority in the United States of America. We're on our way there right now. Only
Mhm.
15 to 18% of the human population of the earth is classified as white. And we aren't white. We are all shades of brown. But in about 25 years, pale, stale males are going to be begging women of color to be theirs so that they can have children of color so that their children and grandchildren and great grandchildren can live in a country on an earth which is going to be the hottest thing you can imagine because of the climate change. Climate change is going to destroy racism because it's going to make it absolutely essential for little children to have a lot of melanin in their skin. We're going to start saying, oh, here's another beautiful melanaceous, melanotic child, because it's going to be absolutely essential for us to have children who have a lot of melanin in their skin if we want them to live. Nature's going to take care of this whole thing, whether we like it or not.
I agree with it, especially climate change. But how do you convince people who don't even believe in the thing like climate change? This whole administration doesn't believe in that, or they believe in it and they're just lying to the public.
It's amazing how quickly people come to believe in another truth when it becomes more better for them to believe the truth. I'm not worried about people refusing to go along because they'll not have any choice. Eventually, they're going to have to look around and see that if they want their children, their grandchildren, their great grandchildren to survive, they'd better marry someone who has a lot of melanin in their skin,
Mm.
because that's what's going to save them. Save them.
We can agree, though, that we probably won't see that in our lifetime. I honestly don't
How
think I'll
old?
ever see it. I'm so surprised I even
How
saw
old
a
are you?
black president.
How old are you?
I'm 15, I'll be 59 in 2 weeks.
I'm 91, and I have seen tremendous. There were years when tremendous advances were being made in the area of racism, when people began to see that race is a lie and it's time to get over it. And then came this person 8 years ago who decided that he would use racism to get what he wanted. And that's what he's doing. And he knows how to appeal to our basest instinct. And one of our baser instincts is racism, to judge people on the amount of a chemical in their skin. It makes no sense. It makes no more sense to judge them by the amount of chemical in their skin than it does to judge them by the amount of a chemical in their eyes. And when you see the film, The Eye of the Storm, and see how those little white kids react to being treated fairly or unfairly on the basis of the color of their eyes, all of a sudden, when my father saw the film that was made in my classroom, I took it to the hotel that they owned, And I showed it to my mother and my father. My father was 59 years old at the time, a farmer. And he stood up after it was over, and with tears in his eyes, he blew his nose, took his red handkerchief out of the back pocket of his overalls, blew his nose, wiped his eyes, and said, "I wish somebody taught me that when I was 9 years old." He would not tolerate a racist remark in his presence after he saw that film, because those 9 year olds learned from his daughter something that he had never learned, that you do not treat people positively or negatively on the basis of your ignorance about skin color. It was just remarkable.
I couldn't agree more, but you said yourself that racism is profitable, right? And we're in a capitalist country. So given that people know that it's profitable, it's easier for them to push the racism button, even to the point where now we have this thing called reverse racism. But the only way you can have reverse racism is to believe that you were racist in the first place.
Reverse racism is something that pale faces use to justify their disgusting behaviors. Right?
Mhm.
Reverse discrimination becomes totally ridiculous when what's going on is pale stale males are scared to death that those who are other than what we call white and who believe in the golden rule think that we believe in the golden rule and that we treat people the way we want to be treated. The golden rule says,
Mhm.
"Do unto others as you would have others do unto you." Well, what if people of what we call people of color think that the way we white people treat other people is the way we want to be treated? That's the main fear right now among most of the so-called white population. What if they want to get even with us? And we have a so-called president who talks about retribution. And he
Mhm.
is offering us an example of getting even with his so called enemies on a daily basis. Do you realize how dangerous this is to have this person, the person who is now talking about being given the Nobel Peace Prize, and he's talking about retribution on a daily basis? That man is teaching people to be racist and to abuse those who are different from himself and to get away with
Mhm.
it. And if he can do it, then why can't Johnny down the street do it? And why can't Susie over there in that chair do it? And why can't husbands do it to their wives? You see, we put ourselves in a real mess right now because we've got to spend the next 3.5 years trying to keep him from destroying the United States of America.
Very true.
Racism is what will finally divide this country right down the middle, just as sure as God made little green apples. Racism could destroy this democracy, and it's on its way to doing that right now.
I agree with you more. Last question or point I want to make, and I'll get out of your way. I've been using the argument that I feel like once we sign the Civil Rights Bill, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, that we took our foot off the gas pedal. I thought that the bus boycott and the the sanitation boycott back in Martin Luther King's day was the blueprint of how to make a difference. And I think once we saw a little bit of change, I think we took our foot off the gas pedal when we should have been mashing it even that much more and pushing forward.
Yes, we
How
should
do
have.
you feel about
Absolutely. Absolutely, we should have, because pale, stale males at that time were scared to death that they were going to lose their power. And women were getting more powerful all the time. And right now, women are the newscasters you see are mostly female.
that? Mhm.
Right now we have a situation in which the people have had the power for years are trying really, really hard not to let go of it. So we're going to have to work harder now than we did during the civil rights movement. We're going to have to absolutely double our efforts to see to it that students in schools get told the truth, that we teach the true history and not the hysteria they're talking about teaching right now. That we
Mhm.
stop people who are making racist remarks, that we change their vocabulary so that we take those words out of their vocabulary so that they know that there are things that you are not allowed to say in classrooms or on gym floors. That there are things that you cannot say if you're going to be a civilized student or a civilized citizen in the United States of America. There are things that we just stopped saying from about from after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed until Mr. Trump appeared on the scene. And we've made drastic steps backward because of the leadership of a racist. And he is blatantly and happily and determinedly racist. There is not a non racist bone in that man's body. And he is president of the United States. Come on. We've presented our young people with a really, really ugly example for how adults behave. We've got to see to it that and he's talking about being elected for a third term against the Constitution. We have to teach our students, no, the Constitution stands, folks, and we're going to stand with it. We have to
Right.
protect that which has worked for this country for how many years? And it was working well. We took out the words that black people didn't have they were only 2/3 of a person. We got that out, but he'll put it back in. This man is a determined, ignorant racist. And it's bad enough to be ignorant, but it's really bad to be an ignorant racist and leading the country.
Miss Jane Elliott, it's been an honor and a privilege and a blessing to have you on the Lions Den. I thank you for your precious time, and I wish you Godspeed in the future. And you're 91 years young. Keep pushing forward, please.
And I'm so tired of doing this. And I thought I was going to be able to stop doing it after Barack Obama got elected. I thought, like Whoopi Goldberg did, now I can put my suitcase down. I don't have to leave this country. And now here we are. Here we
Hmm.
are. It is, we have taken drastic steps backward. We've got to fix this, and we've got to fix it now.
I don't agree with you more, but at least we still have fighters like you around. Some people are just cowards. You're still fighting.
Well, I'm still fighting because they're afraid to kill me. You see, they learned killing Martin Luther King Jr. what a mistake that was. We turned him into a
Hmm.
martyr. They won't kill me because that would make a martyr out of me, and when I go to do when I used to go on colleges, but on college campuses, but the evangelical Christians and the white nationalists have gotten me barred from all college and university campuses because I might teach those students something that they don't want them to hear, which is there are no white people, there are no black people, and Jesus had kinky woolly hair and feet of bronze. Shall we shall we practice what he preached?
Well, I know a lot of people are tuning into this podcast, and we got a lot of positive reviews because a lot of people still believe in you and what you say, including my family. So I appreciate you.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate you.
You have a good night.
Thank you. I intend to. Goodbye now.